getting into it, the first post I saw today, posted just a little bit ago, was did the tank nerfs achieve their goals? So this comes initially from the post that I think it was back in July. Yeah, back in July, basically stating that tanks will take the more damage overall, but shouldn't die significantly more often. Damage intake should be steady and not too fast. We'll still have strong answers to threats or periods of danger, but less sustained self-healing. Healer gameplay should not be dominated by tanking. Wait, by tank healing. Tank gameplay should not be significantly changed or require actions like kiting to survive. So I'll start off and say about like what my thoughts are on current tanking. I'll say personally, I haven't felt the need to kite to survive. However, I will say, where's the one where it's about steady? Right here, steady and not too fast. I don't think this is entirely true, because I think a majority of Mythic Plus mechanics are designed to be a spike of damage. There's a reason why your DBM pings you and says defensive, because at a certain point, your normal cooldowns aren't going to be enough to absorb it, or you're going to take a significant amount of damage because of it. Which is fine somewhat. Like, I understand there's going to be abilities that you have to watch out for. The thing I don't like about it as a tank is that often it's unavoidable, not just you damage, but group damage. It was just myself. It wouldn't be such a big deal, but often it's group damage in mass. It's just you're trying to mitigate it yourself, so you're not being healed as much. And that's kind of what the unfortunate side effect of this of the giving like less self-healing to tanks is, in my opinion, is that because there's less self-healing, you are forced to instead pop defensives so you don't need to heal in those moments. So it's pacing those out properly, which I think feels better overall, but it is notably worse in terms of the learning curve, in the sense that it gives you less opportunity to correct yourself when you mess up, which doesn't necessarily help in the Mythic Plus culture of it all. But I mean, honestly, if you're not worried about that, then I don't think it's a big deal. So we just talked about it. Basically, these few things, the main points. Personally, I don't think what they did what they set out to. Damage feels just as spiky, but maybe I'm just not good enough. And I kind of agree. I'm kind of intended to leaning towards agreeing that damage still feels spiky. It's just that how you pace out your defensives matters more, and what self-healing you have left is used during those moments. So it's like, it's kind of strange to be like, oh yeah, it still feels okay, when in reality, I don't think that it 100% does. So I think, well, what do I think? I think that ultimately, that when it comes to tanking, it's easy enough for tanks. I mean, tanks that are experienced to adjust to this, but I tend to agree on the side of, I don't think this set out to wear like what they intended. Because unfortunately, this doesn't have effects necessarily on the tanks. I think tanks will get used to it, but it has secondary and tertiary effects on DPS. And DPS end up blaming the tanks or the healers when they're also taking the damage that tanks can maybe eat, but they can't, or the healer ends up healing the tank first, which they should, and then not everyone else. So that's my thoughts on that. So I think that ultimately, I think that it's fine where it's at, but ultimately, yeah, they didn't quite do what they said they were doing here. So additionally, so let's read some of the comments. As a healer, I feel like improperly played tanks are getting globaled a lot more. I remember seeing in previous seasons. Maybe that's how it should be, but I doubt it's helping with tank shortages. Yeah, and this is the other thing too. I mean, if you're trying to provide more tanks in the game, why nerf them? To me, if you want more tanks, you should make tanks be able to solo content better than everyone else. But to be honest, doing like tier 8 delves still kind of feels like a slog. I can definitely do them. I don't die in them, but it still feels a bit like a slog. So I mean, it's kind of like when you lose something and you don't gain anything in return, it doesn't feel as good. They could have done anything to offset it, even if it wasn't direct, and it would have felt better. Demon Hunters getting one shot by bosses on Mythic Plus. Yeah, I mean, Demon Hunters, I will say, I kind of err on the side of what this guy is saying, where it's like a lot of people struggle to manage their cooldowns, especially early on. But I think Demon Hunters are in a great spot, if I remember correctly, tanking wise. So I don't know if Demon Hunter is the best one to do that. Oh, bricked my 9 dot breaker yesterday. Wow. By doing this on the second boss, nothing up for the tank buster and went to 0. Used all of our battle reses and wiped us sub 1% key over. Eesh. As a mentioned in Demon Hunter, I get one shot at my trash packs. I pull by using spikes and jumping in them. Yeah. I mean, that kind of just happens. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily like a Demon Hunter thing. Jumping is the wrong play. Wow, people really talk about Demon Hunters here. The answer people will give you will vary depending on what key level they do. I think at lower levels, you might get the impression that Blizzard achieved their design goals with tanks. No, I'm doing lower key levels and I definitely feel it. The damage intake is absolutely spiky. Yes. I do have to kite sometimes. No. The deadliest thing is fortified mob. I think you don't have to kite, but you do have to mob priority. I'm like rolling over my words. Mob priority is absolutely essential. You do have to, there is important kill order. The deadliest thing is fortified mob with white swings, which can global you if you misplay. They also claim that increasing the need for healers to heal tanks would enable Blizzard to tone down the incoming group damage. I think this claim was bogus. Yeah, no, I don't think that's the case at all. They did not tone down the damage to groups. My DPS and healers are getting murdered by unavoidable AoE. Yeah, it's like you took the damage, didn't change it. You reduced how much healing tanks do. And so now healers are healing tanks more often and everyone's taking the same amount of group damage and spiky damage. And you didn't make it to where the lower tier healers can save in those situations. And so a lot lower like tier healers struggle to keep up. The group damage is higher than Dragonflight. They lied. Yeah. Don't forget overlapping tank slams with synced white hits. Anima slam twice. There's too much words in there. Absolutely, this makes it so traditionally swingy tanks like DKs can feel really terrible to heal. I hesitate to want to group with any tank that's not warrior, monk, or bear. The kiting is fine, and I don't mind it as a mechanic, but it's pretty niche, and so often it causes one of the Zugzugs in my party to get frontaled because they don't adjust in kind. Yeah, I guess that might be something that I'm not familiar with because I'm not doing like the uber high keys. So I would say personally, if I'm having to kite, that's gonna suck. I don't like the idea of doing that. Maybe like for certain bosses, okay, but like trash packs, no, I'm good. I stand still. I know it's been a thing since Mythic Plus existed in Legion, but as a player of all the tanks, I loathe kiting. I hate it to the point that I won't do higher keys. I picked this class and spec to be the rock for my group. Yeah, I'm what do they say? Like a rolling stone never grows moss. I want to grow moss. I want to be mossy as hell. I want to be like a sloth that stays in a tree and grows all the moss. Prot Warrior feels good. Prot Paladin feels not great. I honestly want to know the depths of why Prot Paladin is so bad. Bear is just bear. I've heard people are loving bear right now. Yeah, bears are fucking juggernauts. Yeah, like that's insane. Wait. He says after they get rolling, I guess. Okay. 2 things stick out for me as a healer and 9 and 10 keys. You notice a bad tank very quickly as a healer. If the tank is not good, he requires a bit of spot healing here and there because of good cooldown usage and dungeon knowledge. Maybe art burst healing in certain pulls like Enraged Ogres and Grim Batal, but it can pull multiple groups, but understands how heavy damage is. Okay, so only spot healing, not so bad. I've never gotten more use out of a healer externals in my life than this expansion. What are externals? Time dilation into those big pulls lets the spikier tanks, Blood Death Knight and Guardian, time to get going and lets you smooth out those hard pulls. when it does get hectic, the group now heavily relies on everyone using utility. If the tank starts getting wrecked, the healer has to focus on keeping the tank alive. Yeah, this is exactly what I was saying. So like once you start having to focus on the tank as a healer, that's when the group falls apart. And so you kind of get a lot of tanks blamed out of this. In reality, everyone is having to pop some form of defensives. Do I prefer it when, as long as you did the mechanic right, you wouldn't need to pop defensives of some sort? Yeah. Do I understand that it's just kind of the nature of the game right now? Yeah, also. Let's see. There's now a significant amount of pulls where I have to use a shit ton of stuff purely to keep the tank alive. I would say as long as the tank is decent, maybe in bursts in certain situations, but significant. I feel like they went from active mitigation in response to damage instead said if you aren't actively mitigating, you die. I do hate the idea of like pre-gaming it, you know, like where you have to pre-game it so much that it just becomes part of your rotation. It just becomes annoying. Like you got to keep it like off cooldown. It's like you want to run it at all times, and you have to like prepare. It just becomes, I don't know. Like I don't mind hitting the buttons that I need to hit. I don't like having to like, I guess, do so much that it feels like you're just over preparing or over healing so much. So that feels weird. Let's see. Nobody wants to tank or heal. Okay. I see it more for tanks personally. The changes are terrible for the enjoyment of everyone in keys. Many tanks and healers have opted out just not to do them, so the void of them is massive. And the thing is, once they actually do it, get in group, if they're not good, people get so tilted. Guys, if you want more tanks, be nicer to your tank. It's that fucking easy. They made tanks and healers jobs harder for absolutely no reason. I think why they did it, so if I'm going to interpret why they chose to do something like this, I think it's because for a while healers were having to go between healing and then during their off time DPS, and it became like a requirement, so you can meet like DPS checks, and I don't think healers like that at all. And then for tanks, it felt like more and more that you didn't need healers as much. So I understand them doing it, but I think not changing healers or like buffing healers like universally, and then taking something away from tanks but not giving them anything in return, I think is a miss. And I think that's why it's the problem. And they did it on purpose. Everyone getting global due to mistakes, including tanks. I also really dislike this idea that mistakes are like shouldn't be a thing. Like people talk about mistakes like you shouldn't make mistakes. I understand in the higher keys, I get it. Like there's a lot less room for error, and you should know by that point, right? But I think there should always be room for making mistakes. A lot of people hate when I say I don't like things that insta-kill or insta-gib you. Say you're at 70% health and something kills you immediately. That to me is fucking wild. I don't think that gives you room for learning and improving. I'm in situations where often in Mythic Plus, it's like, oh yeah, this is the mechanic that will kill you. So, and it happens almost almost a couple times per dungeon. Like this is the mechanic that'll one shot you or kill you. So that's kind of annoying. It's just something I dislike. I'm not saying remove it, get rid of it. I'm just saying I dislike it. I much more prefer like recoverable mistakes, and I don't think that makes the game worse. Because if you die, say for example, something that of course injures you, you still understand where you messed up. So I don't get that as a thing. Let's see. They say they would make changes for intake for tanks to be less spiky. Yeah. So I think that may assist it, but honestly, I think it's more of just buff tanks. Buff tanks in a different way. I don't think that that's impossible. I think that it's very much possible to buff tanks in mitigation. And I think the way you do that is you allow tanks, when they use defensives, that if you pregame your defensive properly, like say within a certain amount of time of like taking a significant amount of damage, then it should have like additional effects. So it's not affecting anybody else directly, but it does improve like doing things properly. So it's like, if you avoid mechanic in the past, you don't take damage. So if you defensive properly before the hit, sure, you might take some damage, but it'll be insignificant enough to where the healer doesn't have to worry about healing you because you did your proper defensive. That's what I think. Stupid as it may be, that's what I think. So let's see. As a prot paladin, I feel like it's more about tuning of certain tank busters this patch than anything. Looking at you, anima slash getting one shot through a defensive is not a fun experience. I don't think I've had any issue as long as I pop defensives. It's like whenever I have my defensives up and then I still take a significant amount of damage, I guess. I don't think I've ever been one shot though through like anything like that myself anyways. One misplay from the prop valley and they fall like paper. Yeah. I can't say if they achieved their goals or not. No, they didn't. They started to head in the right direction and they had 0 completion, it feels like. I feel like the main issue is DPS, guys. It's DPS's fault, turns out. DPS like to die to mechanics, and it feels like there's less I could do about it in this expansion. I would say in DPS, in the defense of DPS, melee DPS have to deal with more emotion than literally anybody else in the game. Range DPS are fucking hoity-toity, but yet have way more defensives than melee DPS, I feel like. Maybe I'm wrong. Probably I'm wrong. It's just comparatively, it doesn't feel even. All right, comparatively, it doesn't feel even. Yep, there's less tanks now. I mean, yeah, if you're gonna use anything as a metric, use the metric of the fact that there isn't as much tanks. That should tell you something. And I think the reason why they may not be adjusting to this change is because they're probably assuming that people don't want to tank because it's still early, and people aren't quite used to it. But I assure you, when I do mythics, people talk like they know everything. So I don't think that's a problem. I don't think they're struggling there. I don't think they're struggling there at all, because people sure are yapping like they know everything. So, so I think it's fine. All right. So I mean, yeah. What I think about this is, I think ultimately, it took a lot of things away, but it didn't give people something to do with it. I don't think that you can take away things in game to try to resolve an issue with how healers are treated, and then make the game better. Like, it literally took 2 things away, made healers' lives harder, and it said this is better now, right? But it didn't change anything about the damage or anything like that. To me, them saying that damage would be less spiky is literally saying if you don't manage your cooldowns properly, it will be spiky. That's them effectively saying, like, we did it. We did it. Look what we did, community. We did it well. Anyways, hope y'all enjoyed the video. Make sure you give it a like, subscribe to the page for more WoW content, as well as some gaming content. We've been posting on regular gaming news content and doing React content on top of that. So I hope y'all have been enjoying that too. Leave a comment with your most disliked class to play with in any Mythic comp.